Hello everyone and welcome to Ace Studios. Today I am going to part 2 of my tattoo portfolio video. Now, as of today, I do not actually have a apprenticeship, which is fine. I didn't think that I was going to get one, but hopefully over the summer when I do talk to more tattoo artists and go to actual tattoo studios, I can get even more advice and maybe get an apprenticeship. So what we're going to do today is talk about the 3 different things that I learned when I was at the Chicago Tattoo Convention talking about different artists. So first, let's do a review of my portfolio and what it stands like today. So of course I have the first page, which is my beautiful flowers from my Tattoo Styles and Flowers, as well as my dragon in Snapdragons, which I absolutely love. One of the first things that someone told when I was talking to someone is make sure that your line work is very crisp and very clear. If you look here, there is like a little bit of a line overlay and here, and if you look really closely, there are a lot of details that aren't the crispest. It's not the cleanest. Also, when you're doing black work, you want to make sure that your lines aren't tiny. Tiny lines most likely will fade out faster just because of the way that the skin is. So you want to make sure that your line work is clean, and you want to make sure that if you're making a very detailed piece, you make it bigger so that those details aren't lost in the skin. I had people really liking this page, especially the succulent, which of course is why I have stickers of it, and they liked both of the sides. And again, with the line work, we want to make sure that it's completely clean. We want to make sure that it's, as black as possible, using very good pens and very good materials to create this artwork. Another suggestion that I got from one of the artists I talked to is actually using watercolor paper for watercolors. And I guess you never would have guessed that I should use watercolor paper for watercolors. Now, I didn't think that it was a big issue, but I thought that is something to keep in mind. Using the correct materials for what you're using, especially if you are painting in watercolors or gouache or acrylics, make sure that you're using a paper that is the best for what you're working with. Now, if you can't do that, that's fine. Obviously, I'm just using sketchbook paper. Just make sure that your paper is drying flat under something heavy so that you don't get a bunch of wrinkles. I like to stand on a sketchbook on top of the piece of paper so that it dries flat, just because I think that's fun. Then we have more art, more flowers. Flowers are obviously something I really like to draw. When you're doing realistic, another thing that I had been told is make sure that you're really hyping up contrast. Because when you're doing realism, you want to make it pop from the skin. You want the blackest blacks to be the blackest blacks. Now, this was made in charcoal, but since it was for a video, I didn't want to take a million years to make this look very, very realistic, which I could have done. I don't know if that's in frame. So something that if you're doing charcoal drawings and you want to include those, make sure that you're really pushing your values. You want the whitest whites and the darkest darks, because that makes a piece pop all the more on a piece of paper or on skin. Again, if you're doing watercolor, gouache, acrylic, make sure you're using the right paper. One of the suggestions I got for this piece in particular, and it kind of goes for all art in general, is using references from actual imagery. A lot of Japanese art comes from actual Japanese art. So if you're trying to make a koi fish design or a dragon design or just a Japanese character in the Japanese style, look for Japanese woodblock cuts, because that is where it originated, is Japanese woodblock. So if you look at those, you want to look at those for inspiration instead of tattoos necessarily when you're actually drawing, because when you're looking at those things, you want to make sure that you're getting as close to the original source as possible. Because you want your thing to look like what it's supposed to look like. Now, I know with this one, I also have not the cleanest lines, and so if you can do it in digital art and print it, I highly suggest it, just because you can easily, or more easily, erase your mistakes and get very clean lines. So, as you can see, not all of these are clean. I went back in white pen, whereas if I was in a digital program, I would easily be able to erase my mistakes and continue. Now, of course, it's always good to be able to actually draw things good, but with the supplies that I use to draw this, which is just a gel pen and a white gel pen, I think it's pretty decent. And of course, this one I also used a white gel pen, and I was trying to focus on line work, so we, again, want to make sure that our line work is really good. And this is something that someone mentioned, that I should be very careful with detail and thin lines, because the thin lines will spread out over time in the skin, so that if I want to make very detailed pieces, I should make sure that these details are kind of blown up. So if this would go on a hand, which it wouldn't, or an arm, you'd want to make sure that there either were thicker details or, just less details, because we don't want these details to disappear into the skin. Which is why I kind of like drawing in Sharpie, because you get those thicker lines and you can get details with the dots. And this is, again, something that I wanted to show, and people said you should be using the watercolor paper. But one thing that I did get, as well as all of these critiques and things that I should change and get better on, is that I have talent. And I think that was one of the most inspiring things to hear at this convention, is that people who own shops, who have been in the industry, who are women in the field, telling me that I'm doing good, I should keep drawing what I love to draw, keep making my artwork better, so that I can become what I want to become. One of the female artists that I met said, do what you want to do, and don't let anyone tell you different. Which I think is really great, being a feminine person. I want to do this, and I want to draw what I want to draw, and make what I want to make. So that was really inspiring. And to hear from artists that they think I have talent, and they think that if they were, looking for an apprentice, that I could be one, it was really inspiring. So I do suggest highly, if you get the chance to go to a convention, go talk to people. Go take your portfolio and talk to people. Even people who don't live in your area. I mean, most of the people that I talked to at the Chicago Tattoo Convention were people that were not in Chicago. They were based in Maryland, they were based in Indiana, they were based in Texas and Florida. But just because they're somewhere else and they can't hire you as an apprentice doesn't mean that you can't become something great and use their advice to become a better artist. So just to go over everything that I've said, you want to keep your line work clean, concise, and make sure that your details are, detailed. But if you're working on a smaller scale, maybe make sure that you're having a little less detail than if you're making a big piece and you want a lot of detail, because the ink won't run out into the skin. At least that's what they told me. Also, use materials that are the best for you. If you're doing watercolor, if you're doing acrylic, if you're painting, get paper that can handle those materials. And thirdly, do what you love to do. If you don't do what you love to do, if you're drawing simply to please someone else, it's not worth your time. If you just want to get into the tattoo business to look cool and to tattoo, you're doing it wrong. If you love drawing and you want to make this art permanent on people's bodies, Draw what you love to draw. I love drawing flowers. I have flowers on my body. I would love to make people have put permanent art of flowers and other designs on people's bodies. And I just think that's very, very wonderful. And that's definitely something I want to do. And I'm very passionate about that. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. I hope I covered everything. I possibly will make a part 3 when I change some of the pieces that are in my portfolio, because yes, they are good pieces and I have talent, but I can always improve and I always want to make more for myself. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe. I post art videos every week, whether they're tattoo related or otherwise, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week.